I don't know why it's so difficult to get black people on the same page. And I have my days where I just want to quit, just quit the community. This dives into the, not hating black people, but hating black culture. And then I start to have other areas of doubt, when it comes to, questioning our collective intelligence. Then I have to remind myself, I go over there and I look at the white folks, and I look at the majority of the Trump supporters, and these sorts of reactionary white people that are trying to claim that they're the victims now, right? They hate critical race theory. Um, they jump up about the LGBT shit, which I understand, because the vast majority of people are heteronormative cisgendered. I wouldn't disagree with them there. But it's like how they try to put it all together. All these forces. Black people filing complaints about injustice, and they try to make it look like they're this toddler, in the middle of a kindergarten room surrounded by monsters, right? The immigration, all that stuff, right? It's threatening their way of life. Let's just call it that. But what I do admire about white people, and maybe admire is not the right word, but the fact that they stay on code, the fact that they have that knee jerk like reaction. I was going to make a video about the Second Amendment, all this bullshit they're trying to do in New Jersey. No noise from Cory Booker. I mean, right in the bill is just discriminating against black people, be it that black people are disproportionately poor. And yes, we're disproportionately, affected by gun violence and the inner city crime. But, the vast majority of that is economic, right? But right in the bill, you want a concealed carry application, $200, right? Liability insurance. And then all the other fees that they want to increase that is just going to basically make it to where white people are the only people that are able to afford concealed carry and firearms in the state of New Jersey. And not so much as a peep coming from black people. Not so much as a peep. I understand if you're in Georgia or you're some other state, it doesn't affect you. But, with the way that black people run around with all this ambulance chasing, you would think that this would be something that would be addressed. But because all of our black leaders are on the Democrat agenda and not on the black agenda, right? Anything that pertains to actual real black empowerment, whether it's empowerment, financially, or empowerment militaristically, or empowerment in terms of, well, I guess I will put even the self-defense aspect militaristically, because that's essentially what it is. It is the idea that you have access to firearms so that you don't get steamrolled if somebody were to just wake up and show their ass one day. And you would think with the history that black people have in this country, we'd be the first people to jump up and support that, but we're not. And the main reason that we're not is, in my opinion, because the black community is a matriarchal community. When white men primarily focus on the Second Amendment, and they go right to protecting their communities, protecting their wives and their women and children. They go right to that. They actually have something that they're protecting, because the vast majority of them don't operate in a matriarchy. Where with us, or they have, a stronger semblance of a patriarchal community than the black community. I don't think anybody would argue with that. But with the black community, it's matriarchal. And you see all this shit with black men's, needs, and black men being prioritized is ignored. Democrats come through, they pander to the fucking women. The women stupidly run around thinking that they're, empowered. The black women run around mommying black men, as BGS likes to say. I like that term because that's exactly what it is, mommying. And it's and as a black man, I just feel alone. I just feel like what is the point, right? Because like you can't even do anything with your own woman, right? Which to me, all of this shit is is by design. But it's like if black people can't even get out of their own way when it comes to this sort of stuff, right? Then we can't even get to the more complex conversations. I look at the stuff with uh, Kanye West, and he's been saying just he reminds me of like a paranoid schizophrenic. The type of person that'll tell you that there's microphones in the walls and that the feds are listening to him or some shit like that, right? Uh, and then to me, Kanye's like a true homeless person. Like all of his outfits, look like he's homeless. I mean, just everything he wears looks like he's homeless. And what's so funny is, like, what do homeless people do, right? Like, we ever see when people interview homeless people? A lot, you get the ones that, like, they got a really tragic story, but then you get some other ones that believe in all type of wild conspiracy theories, and it's like a broken clock. They're right, twice a day. 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. That's when they're right. And you'll walk away like, oh man, that was deep. But like, they're so fixated on that the rest of their life crumbles and they can't function. They cease to function, in the complex society that we live in. They start neglecting their bills and all this other stuff because they're so certain that the moon is an alien moon base or some shit like that, right? And so they have all these theories about it, and when they dropped the space module, it rang like a bell, and they can tell you all that, but they neglect everything else. But what I noticed is about like crazy homeless people like that is they're like a sponge. You know what I mean? They take in all this information, but they're missing screws. There's things psychologically and emotionally going on, and so they tend to fixate on things, and that's what Kanye does. He fixates and tries to like interconnect things. In my opinion, and I think it was who said it. I think what's the brother's name? He's part of Nation of Islam, Riza, whatever his name, Riza Islam, Riza Islam. I don't know what his name is, but yeah, Kanye hasn't been straight ever since his mother died. I said that, long time ago, and I still stand by that. It was like if you go back and you watch like just the man's mind, George W. Bush doesn't like black people, right? And then he's all over the place. You go out there, you marry a white woman, you got mixed kids, you're crying. He's all over the fucking place. He's textbook, bipolar disorder. And I think, it's already been confirmed that that's what he has. And I like what Dame Dash said when Dame Dash did, he did a little interview with somebody, and he was like, basically, if he has mental issues, then why don't you just leave it there? You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, there's times where Kanye demonstrates moments of clarity where you want to hold him fully accountable. And with his statements about the J people, I'll say that because of YouTube algorithms, his statements about the J people, um, it's like, yeah, there's elements of truth in there. I don't doubt that he's been through bullshit, at these meetings and whatnot, in terms of deals and whatnot. Slim Thug has came out and talked about it. I pulled up that article of James Baldwin. People talk about black people burning down their own communities in the 60s. Black people didn't own those properties. Those properties were owned and controlled by J people, who were freaking abusive landlords, slumlords. They wouldn't even maintain the shit. So when they were burning down a lot of those businesses, those businesses were not black owned. The buildings that they were burning down were not black owned. They didn't own anything. So a lot of people miss that. And even in that James Baldwin article, it broke down that whole aspect of anti-Semitism. Black people basically being anti-Semitic because they're anti-white. And that Hollywoodism documentary that I put in my community tab further highlights that. I mean, you want to talk about self-hating. Some of those J people in Hollywood went off and divorced their wives and went off and married Gentile women. Yes, they were very influential in the American dream and Christmas songs, ironically, and a lot of the ideas of the underdog rising up in these movies. They came up with that shit. And we still carry that when it comes to what we want to see and what we expect to see, in movies. But by the same token, I get so sick and tired of this idea that somehow criticizing the J people automatically equates to anti-Semitism, as though the J people are beyond reproach or the J people can't be criticized. I already done pulled up the receipts. You got Robert Moses, who basically coordinated all of the urban renewal and eminent domain that took place, the 1955 Highway Commission Act, and created those racist ass bridges out there on Long Island because he made the bridges low so that the buses couldn't get out there because black people didn't have transportation out of the cities, so they would take buses. But so he made the bridges intentionally low so that black people couldn't go out and enjoy the beaches. He was a J person. Or we could go over to Israel and talk about that whole thing where they were given that you bring the Ethiopian J people over there with 1983 Operation Moses, right? Because all of the J people come home, right? Only for them to be marginalized in their own country or marginalized in Israel. And you can pull up plenty of articles. There's plenty of protests. You want to talk about BLM? That's been going on in Israel. I remember they had that video of where they had that Ethiopian. I think he was a soldier and he was getting beat up by two Israeli cops. Then you had the what the hell was it? The when they were giving the Ethiopian women Depo-Provera, which is a progesterone regimen, which is basically it's you call it what it is. It's like forced sterilization because it's an injection. It lasts 3 months and prevents you from ovulating. So so basically the Ethiopian women couldn't get pregnant, didn't know why they couldn't get pregnant. And when they got caught, you know what Israel did? They jumped up and they said, "Oh, look, we have a black Miss Israel." They got caught with the Depo-Provera, and the article came out in January of 2013. And then they came out with a black Miss Israel in June of 2013. So you're only talking about, 5-6 months later, all of a sudden now they recognize the beauty of dark-skinned Ethiopian women. Get the fuck out of here. The so-called oppressed have become the oppressors. And just because the Holocaust happened, you can't call them out on that shit. You can't call them out on some of the things that they do because essentially, they're white and they look white. So there's a lot of stuff that they can get away with, change their last name. Martin Luther King brought this up, during his last interview. I think it was right before he got assassinated. I think 11 months before he got assassinated, he did the NBC interview. And he pointed that out. He was like, yeah, well, it's easy when you can change your last name. That's not something that black people can do. We can't, go from a black person to an Anglo-Saxon white person like Jenny Jones. We can't just change our last name from Stronsky to Jones. Because Jenny Jones's real name is not Jenny Jones. Her last name is Stronsky. Kirk Douglas's last name is not Douglas. His last name is like Danielvich or something like that. Then you got freaking Rodney Dangerfield. Rodney Dangerfield's real name was not Rodney Dangerfield. Stan Lee's real name is not Stan Lee. So when they can navigate white spaces by simply changing their last name, and then all they're going to do is carry the water for white supremacy, black people like Kanye West are 100% in their right for calling out the J people for some of the fuckery that they do in upholding the system of white supremacy and exploiting black people to their own benefit. But because, the Holocaust happened, oh no, we're the sacred cow. You can't talk about us. You can't say anything about us because we're going to accuse you of anti-Semitism. Now, with that said, in terms of the response, I've seen black people jump up and down, talk about how Kanye made basically anti-black statements when he made the statement that black people were what was it? That we were that we what did we enslaved ourselves or something. What was his statement? That black people chose slavery or something like that. And I didn't jump up and down about it because I'm like, Kanye has already made nonsensical statements before. And I'm saying maybe he is the enlightened one. Who knows? All I'm saying is the way his shit comes out and comes across and the sound bites and all that other shit, they sound fucked up. He's not a Dr. Hendrik Clark. He's not a Dr. Claude Anderson. He's not an Amos Wilson. He can't articulate these things, without sounding like them sound coming off, as completely fucked up. And again, Malcolm X warned about allowing white media to make these black celebrities the spokesperson. Even if Kanye West was in his same mind, he's not a scholar. He's not a scholar. So when he goes up there and he says something, I don't know, like I know why the white folks are doing it. You know what I mean? But I don't know why black people don't shut that shit down, which further highlights our powerlessness. Okay, so I saw a bunch of comments of people talking about Kanye and how, he made these statements and they didn't do anything about when he said that black people chose slavery, but now that he said something about the J people, they shut it all down. Right? And I'm like, so basically you want what? The J people to fight your fight? See, and again, what's so funny is, and this is what I think is funny, right? Because I see a lot of stuff talking about the J people and Kanye making statements about their media and the J people controlled media and this, that, and the third. I see all these statements, right? But and I notice that J people always try to hide the fact that they're in substantial positions of power and influence, right? But what's funny is that gets totally contradicted by the fact of how quickly they can shut shit down. Right? So black people are bitching about, well, how come they didn't respond? Because that's not their fight. That's not their battle. You talk about them, they're shutting shit down, which actually further demonstrates the actual positions of power that they're in. The reason why there's no response when Kanye or anybody else goes up there and says something negative about black people is because black people don't own and operate the businesses. We don't own and operate the corporations and the Fortune 500 companies. We're not in positions where we pick up the phone and shut shit down. Hell, I could take a pop shot at sisters with all the billions of businesses that black women claim that they own and they're running shit because they're boss bitches all over the place. How come black women aren't making phone calls, shutting shit down with all the corporations that they control? When somebody says something out of pocket about them or about black people, however you want to dice it. It doesn't happen, not to the scale that we're seeing with what's going on with Kanye. Everybody's walking. Adidas, Balenciaga, freaking JP Morgan, The Collectors, which is like a sneaker company, a whole bunch of other companies, freaking. Then they told to talk about he got kicked out of Skechers. His net worth is falling down precipitously. And again, they're making an example out of him. They're cutting off his hair. Completely cutting off his hair. We're gonna show this nigga. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's what they're doing. And again, because the people that Kanye has around him, the fact that he has, his handlers and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? I know somebody that was actually dealing with Kanye, and I actually got a phone call. I got a phone call about like Kanye setting up this let's just call it a meeting with somebody, right? And they wanted to go to hell off on Kanye because Kanye basically just didn't even have the courtesy to call them and say, "Hey, I can't make it." Da 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 da. No, had one of his like handlers or something like they come, Kanye West can no longer have an audience with you, that type of bullshit. You know what I mean? And so they call me, freaking I'm walking them off the goddamn edge because they wanted to freaking just like basically put Kanye on blast. But the whole thing was like, nah, Kanye, billionaire, don't want to burn bridges, let it slide, whatever, but again, the whole setup of what was about to go down with this whole meeting, that was a whole bunch of time and effort. And so it didn't go down. And so, just let it slide. And I basically told him, I was like, just let it slide because we don't know where this is going. The man is all over the place. So there's other behind the scenes shit that I know about freaking Kanye that I already know that Kanye is all over the place. And then on top of the fact that he was already arrogant, then his mother died, so whatever base he had to that tethered him to the ground, that's no longer here. And then, just all of his just emotional, erratic behavior. You go out there, you marry a chick with a fucking sex tape, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, he's all over the place. And to have somebody who has that much money, you know what I mean? And you're trying to tell the only people that can help Kanye are people like Beyonce, Jay-Z, Dame Dad, any of these people that at least are in the industry that are like, look, I ain't trying to take nothing from you, Kanye. Those are the only people. You know what I'm saying? But, again, even some of those people, some people would argue, have been compromised, like, Jay-Z running around with the witch lady and all the Illuminati connections and all that stuff. And all these secret society, bohemian, the bohemian, what is that shit? That campground in California with the owl statue and all that other shit, all that weird shit. All that eyes wide shut shit. There's a whole bunch of, even black people that are involved in stuff like that. They're a part of it, but they're not, they don't call the shots. They just happen to be in these super wealthy circles that are able to do that. But instead of going off and creating a black boule or a black circles, they go off and they, mingle with the other folks, but, yeah, what else was I going to say? It was something else I was going to say about, the whole thing. Just black people just not having, not under, like, what pisses me off is us not understanding power. All the black people that jump up and don't like, they look at social media and they're like, they see somebody make a post and they're like, yeah, it's like, and it doesn't even click on them. I'm like, what Fortune 500 companies are we running to where we can shut you down? I remember I was going to say, like, even with Kanye, like, okay, you want to say that the J people are doing this, that, and the third in the background. It's like that interview that 50 Cent gave when he said, some of the worst, what do you say? Something to the effect of like some of the worst crooks are people that you meet in the boardrooms and shit. He was like, at least he's like, they'll rob you on a piece of paper. He was like, at least the guy that's trying to rob you on the street, he at least shows you the courtesy of the gun when he's robbing you. He at least shows. I mean, this goes back to that whole aspect of Prince and the artist formerly known as Prince, and him being a slave and him not, having control of, his masters. And there's all type of fuckery in the music industry, when it comes to this. People who are feeding off of the culture. You know what I mean? But black people really gotta, look themselves in the mirror in as it pertains to allowing this shit to happen and not coming together and not forming Voltron and not doing it. I don't care whether it's underneath the cloak of darkness. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to be able to organize and do shit. You see the shit that Saudi Arabia is doing right now? Fuck you. We siding with Russia. Fuck you. We're not gonna produce more gasoline. The U.S. is like, oh, we're gonna retaliate, and I don't doubt that the U.S. is gonna retaliate. But I'm saying black people, like, it's like you gotta not only be organized to make a move like that, but you gotta be in a position to where there's gonna be retaliation, and you can react and you can pivot to that retaliation. I would have rather seen Kanye sit up there. Okay, you want to say the J people are screwing you over? Okay, fine. They're screwing you over. They're doing this or doing that. They're conspiring. It's fine. I'm saying take their money. You're a billionaire. Okay, why do you got to partner with Adidas, or why do you got to partner with all these other? What's so funny is go look at the two brothers that originated Adidas, because both of them were Nazis. You know what I'm saying? But in any event, I'm saying that Kanye could have taken his, if he really had an issue, take your stuff, take your clothing line, because this is where shit is going to go anywhere. And all that's going to happen is Africans are going to be exploited. And I've been saying for years that African Americans need to form an alliance with Africa in terms of manufacturing products and goods over there as opposed to manufacturing them in Asia. People are leaving China now and going to Vietnam because the U.S. is about to have a conflict with China over Taiwan. But I'm saying there's no reason why these things can't be manufactured and produced in Africa, which would bring up the standard of living in Africa, and it would be mutually beneficial to African Americans in terms of, products, and even goods and services. I've been saying this about the Caribbean, forever. I've been to the Caribbean, and they don't have shit on those islands. But I'm like, why is it every time my computer breaks, I gotta go all the way to freaking India? Can you read the serial number on the back of your computer? Does it say P as in porridge? You know what I mean? Porridge? Like, who the fucking, what P? P as in pie, nigga. Like, P as in porridge. Never forget the time that I had a Dell and that shit broke, and I called them and he's like, is it P as in porridge? I'm like, oh my God. But anyway, I'm like, why can't there be telecommunication shit going on in the Caribbean? You know what I mean? Black people, oh, they don't have any resources, they don't have any minerals, no gold mines. Okay, then black people should be all about cyberspace. We should be writing code, not rhymes. We should be all over, writing, making apps and everything else. Call centers, all that shit. You speak English, right? They speak English in most of the Caribbean, right? This is the things that should be done. But, as it pertains to Kanye, I'm like, you mean to tell me, okay, you got a net worth of $1 billion, and you mean that you can't call up Akon, who got another $1 billion from China? Apparently he spent it all, but got another $1 billion from freaking China for credit, and that you all can't come up with something in terms of getting raw materials into freaking Africa. Pick whatever country you want. Ghana, Sierra Leone, the Ivory Coast, whatever country you want, Nigeria. Pick a country. And you to mean to tell me that you can't manufacture your products there, build a $50 million facility, which will be great for the people, solar panels on the buildings, pave roads, freaking infrastructure, all that shit, and manufacture your products. Like, again, Kanye just, his handlers are trash. You know what I mean? Like you see the shit with freaking, who is it? Joe Biden, motherfucker shaking hands in the middle of the air. Get him off the stage. He starts rambling up. Time to go, Joe Biden, because we can see that your meds are wearing off. This is what Kanye needed, I'm gonna be real. I blame a lot of the other black celebrities when it comes. I understand Kanye is hard to deal with. I understand that he's just he like we saw it on his interview with Sway. You ain't got the answers, Sway. You know what I mean? And then turn around and talked about Sway did have the answers. I understand he's extremely volatile. You know what I mean? But him being where he was before, see, I'm looking at y'all like y'all fucked up. Y'all black celebrities and shit. I'm looking like Chuck because him making that much money, you could have got him. You don't even need to go to Donald Trump to get him to do shit. You can just go to Kanye and be like, Kanye, we trying to do this. Just put the bug in his ear. You know what I mean? Since he's so influenced by all these fucking random shits, he's just as bad as Trump is with the fucking tweeting and shit. You know what I mean? Motherfucker see a headline and then form a conspiracy theory around the headline and then just go fart it out into the universe. And don't care who it hits, how it lands, how it comes off, how it's going to be used against them. I mean, it's just, this shit is nuts. And I need to bring it down a couple octaves because I can see I'm getting excited. But I mean, it's too late now. You know what I mean? They're going to starve him out. You know what I mean? They were like, we made you our token, nigga, and you fucked it up, and now we're gonna cut your air off. And it's not just a lesson to Kanye. Oh no, it's a lesson to the all of black diaspora. You know what I mean? We're gonna have to remind you niggas. See, this nigga got too big for his britches. We're gonna have to remind you niggas of your place in the universe. That's what this really is. You know what I'm saying? This is the collective of black people being reprimanded. You know, or not reprimanded. That's not even a word. Reprimanded. I'm sorry. Reprimanded. That's what this is. You know, but you know, black people, we got so many other issues, man. We just do not know how to stay on code. And, you know, every time you see this shit happening, it should be a lesson to you. They stay on code. The last time black people stayed on code was like the freaking Birmingham bus boycott. That was the last time black people stayed on code. We ain't been on code since. You know, I mean, the shit is just ridiculous right now. You know, you can't get people to see things. Niggas running around talking about dumb shit, want to argue about God, argue about Hotep, looking out your third eye. You know, I mean, just no mathematics, no practicality. You know what I mean? I'm just sitting there like, yo, we got to bring them down to freaking 12 amps. You know, I'm like Sir Andrews, and the pumps only buy you time. That's 5 compartments. You know, she's made of iron, sir. It is a mathematical certainty. She can and she will after Ishmael jumped up and said, this ship can't sink. You know what I mean? Like that's what we need. I'm so tired of brothers wasting time talking about melanin content, trying to big ourselves up by speaking shit into existence. It's about showing and proving. And I love this clip that I seen. I ain't got time to watch 2.5 hours of I'm gonna get around to it, but because that's a long video. That you know the Live Your Leisure interview with 19 Keys and Tariq Nasheed. But I love how Tariq said right in the beginning, um, you know, the whole thing about like you got to get serious. Same thing what Cap talks about with starting a business. You get these guys, they think, oh man, I'm gonna start a business. They think they're gonna open up a business and then take a 6 month vacation immediately after they open up a business. Like, nah, nigga, you gonna be there at 6 o'clock in the morning opening up the doors. That's what it takes to run a business. You know what I mean? But see, a lot of black people, they only go into business, as Chika Oyanyani said, in Capitalist Nigga, they only want to be in the business world so that they can be their own boss and not have to answer to anybody else. The only people who've truly achieved that are people who have basically, you know, have their own YouTube channel, but they still got an overlord to answer to when they really think of it. It's not like YouTube is a black-owned enterprise or corporation. It's not. It's owned by Google. You know what I mean? And there's been enough people, even the white folk, complaining, you know, the 2A advocates and a bunch of other conservatives that have been complaining about the monopoly that Google has on YouTube, and whatever they disapprove, they're able to smack down and call it hate speech or whatever on their own website. They can do what they want. It's their website. It's their platform. It is not a public utility. You see, so black people, you know, we really do lack the understanding of what it means to control shit. You know, and I really have a big problem with this when it comes to, you know, black men. Black women seem to understand it when it comes to their interactions and dealings with us as black men. But black women don't even seem to understand it when it comes to the bigger picture, and neither do black men. You know what I mean? Like they don't understand when they can jump up and say fuck you. You know what I mean? Like they don't understand. Everybody wants to. They fantasize about fuck you money, but they don't realize what fuck you money, what level you actually have to be at to have fuck you money. It's not just about the money itself. It's about all channels that tie into what do I want to call it? It's about the what's the word I'm looking for? The vertical integration of whatever it is that you use to make your money. Like in other words, yeah, I run, let's say it's a black version of YouTube, and I run the optical wire, and I run the power grid, and I run this, and I run that, and I'm connected into this. All aspects, all levels of production from the yeah, you own the company that's in the Amazon rainforest chopping down trees. You transport the paper. You own the company that transports the wood to the sawmill. You own the company that turns the trees into paper, and then you own the company the printing press and the company that manufactures the ink and the printers themselves and the newspaper. But black people, we don't understand that. And then we wonder, then we sit up around feeling some type of way when we get shut out and we get dissed and all that other stuff. And somebody wrote a comment about, that they thought that black people and the Jewish people should be, closer together, or that we should have, or excuse me, I should say the J people because of YouTube algorithms, but that we should be closer together and have better ties. And yeah, I used to think that shit myself growing up. I was like, we had slavery, they had the Holocaust, and there was a point in time in the 60s where, there were, some J people who felt that way. Again, the Freedom Riders, that whole Mississippi burning. I put the link in the description box of on the community tab. Somebody asked me the question. I reposted it. Yeah, that used to go down. They died for what they believed in. They thought that racism and the schools being segregated was wrong, and they went down to Mississippi and thought that they were going to, go in there and, sit on some counters and we're going to show them. But, they ran across, racist, Ku Klux Klan, people who, were, what do you call it? They were white supremacists, and they took them out. The only J person that I've really seen that really, he doesn't play that shit, and what people don't know is basically Seth Rogen, and Seth Rogen is, he's an atheist. And you saw this in his movie, the film Sausage Party that he directed. So he's a J person by ethnicity. But he doesn't really follow the faith like that. But I mean, there was an article that I found on him. I forget what I was looking for, because I think I was trying to find why don't like the J people and black people have more in common. I've felt this way also about as it pertains to the Second Amendment, because if you look at a lot of the people that are very much anti a Second Amendment or want to push gun control, you know what I mean, Chuck Schumer and folks like that. You're like, wait a minute, but didn't this happen to you in Europe? You would think that you all would be the number one advocates of the Second Amendment, just like black people, so that the Holocaust can't happen again and so that slavery can't happen again, right? You would think that black people and J people would be the most armed people in America. That's what you would think. But it's not the case. You get they're these J people, New Yorkers, and they're like, we don't believe in guns, and they're just these freaking elite autocrats of New York, and they just rule shit. And again, they got so much money, they're like, no, we don't want the poors to have, so it's a class thing. So it's a little different dynamic. But Seth Rogen on multiple. Let me see if I can find this article real quick. Seth Rogen. Was it white nationalist? Let's see if I can find this article. In a pickle, Seth Rogen tells her what he really thinks. Seth Rogen tells J people, yeah, see, here it is. This is in 2020. So this is Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen tells J people, white supremacists hate you too. Seemingly in response to controversy surrounding President Donald Trump's response when asked to denounce the white supremacist groups during Tuesday night's presidential debates, actor and writer Seth Rogen tweeted a warning to J people that white supremacists discriminate against them also. Just remember, and this is his tweet, just remember, if you're J, white supremacists hate you too. Seth Rogen, September 30th, 2020. And then it says, the Pineapple Express actor tweeted on Wednesday afternoon. The Anti-Defamation League also indicates that white supremacist groups also are prejudiced against J people as a full-fledged ideology. White supremacy is far more encompassing than simple racism or bigotry, the organization wrote to the glossary entry for the white supremacists. So basically, that's what he says. What else did he say? Some people are also so desperate for adulation, they'll serve those who hate them to feel a false version of love. That is Seth Rogen. And I want you to keep in mind, this goes exactly back to what James Baldwin, was saying about, black people have a problem with the system of white supremacy. And if you're just going to be a J person and you're going to change your last name and you're going to carry the water for the system of white supremacy, then, that is the ultimate form of sellout. The irony is that you get, we talk about colorism in the black community and the house Negro versus the field Negro, and this whole concept of passing, and this whole concept of the lighter skinned black people being more favored by white people, and essentially the J people almost operate and act as the same thing. Where they're like the spook by the door. They get in because they look closer to them, so they're able to have proximity to them. But it's like, okay, well, what are you doing? Is it going to be, like that brother said that did the video? I forget what it was. It was like years ago. He was like, well, how do you feel about biracial people? He was like, well, it depends. He was like, if the freaking, if the white supremacist knocks me down and the biracial person is on top of me and he's knocked down too, and he's like, man, as soon as I get this motherfucker off my back, both of us are gonna whip his ass. He's like, okay, brother, right on. But he was like, if he gets on top of me, the freaking white supremacist pushes him down to the ground and then throws the biracial person on top of them. And then the biracial person is like, looks back at the white supremacist and says, oh, master, go get some water. I'll hold him down for yous. You know what I mean? He's like, nah, now we got problems. You know what I mean? So Seth Rogen has always kept it 100, as it pertains to that. He's like, y'all running around kissing these white folks' ass, thinking that they're going to accept you because, again, the world is just rampant with anti-blackness, and that's just not the case. Let me read his quote again. Quote again. Seth Rogen, people are so desperate for adulation. This is what we talk about. What he's saying the same thing that, let's say, the Black Truth Professor will say, or Black Authority will say. Yeah, adulation, wanting butter biscuits. This is their version of butter biscuits. This is a J person calling out other J people about butter biscuits. Some people are so desperate for adulation, butter biscuits, they'll serve those who hate them to feel a false version of love. Like, in other words, he's saying point blank, he's like, y'all out there, you don't want to fuck with the black people or whoever else, but y'all sit there and y'all get buddy with these white folks, and these white folks can't stand you. Just point blank. That's why, again, I fuck with Seth Rogen. And then what's this? This is Ben Shapiro. Donald Trump has in fact condemned white supremacy repeatedly. In exchange, everyone is quoting from last night. He repeatedly said he is willing to do so. This is fact. This is back in 2020. Friggin' Ben Shapiro is not a fan of Donald Trump. He's already made that shit repeatedly. I'm not gonna hold people to positions that they were saying before, but have basically spoken out against those positions or those previous positions. Where's this at? I remember. Okay, so here's what it is. Where's this at? Rogen has been outspoken about the J people in interviews and his movies. His latest movie, An American Pickle, features him playing a J immigrant. In July interview, Rogen spoke extensively about. Okay, here it is. In a July interview with Mark Maron on his WTF podcast, Rogen spoke extensively about his J people upbringing. A lot of people, I think, don't just conversationally understand that if you meet a J person in America, they're probably here because someone tried to kill their grandparents not that long ago. He said at one point in the interview. And then it goes on to say, as previously reported, the actor also spoke about anti-Semitism in that interview. I remember my dad frankly telling me, people hate J people. Just be aware of that. They just do. And it's honestly something that I am so glad was instilled in me from a young age, because if it wasn't, I would constantly be shocked at how much motherfuckers hate J people, because they do, he said. And so, and this is the remember when I talked about how, like, you know, the whole black people are sharing their dirty laundry and other people not willing to share their dirty laundry with us. It's like, oh, it's sharing time. Let me tell you about how my people are fucked up. And then, okay, your turn. And then other people aren't willing to do that. Well, I'm saying, Seth Rogen right here, he is doing that. He's like, nah, we got some freaking, I don't even know what you would call it, a June, you know what I mean? Like a J person coon, you know what I mean? Yeah, they got some coons amongst their people. You know what I mean? That are out here and think that, that they're not. I mean, I've seen it. I mean, I remember this chick I went to college with, and she was a fine motherfucker. You know what I mean? But I remember she went and she got the rhinoplasty. She got the J people rhinoplasty. You know what I mean? And yeah, she did. She had the hook nose. She had the gonzo nose, the bump on her nose. 100%. You know what I mean? And it did kind of, it made her face different. It was almost like, what's that chick's name with the butt on Instagram? Jen Settler, right? It was kind of like that. She changed her nose as well. You know what I mean? But, it's like, why would you eliminate that? If you truly love yourself. Again, going back to Malcolm X, who made you hate your nose? Who made you hate yourself? So again, the J people got a lot of issues, that go underneath the radar. They got a lot of self-hate issues, inferiority complex issues, and all that type of stuff. It just doesn't get discussed, and it's easy for them to offset, whatever sentiments they might have, because when they do look up, they do see J people in prominent positions of power and influence. They do see that. You know what I mean? So they definitely are a lot better off, than we are in that regard. But don't get it twisted. They definitely have a lot of issues that don't get brought to the light of day or spoken about, a lot. And so they end up being, this buffer. And because of their tribalism and their, ethnocentrism and, them being having an ethno state, I mean, basically Israel is Wakanda, just so you know, it is Wakanda. That is what Israel is, and so it is an ethno state. So I'm just pointing out that, there are issues that they have, self-hate issues, trying to be loved by the dominant culture. And that documentary, Hollywoodism, if that didn't spell it out, I don't know what does. I mean, there was so much dirty laundry in there. There was so much, I was like, damn. I mean, even when it came to JFK's father paying the J people in Hollywood a visit, basically telling them, if you don't stop making movies about what's going on in Germany, because they were trying to bring awareness to it, you know what I mean? If we go to war, we're going to blame it on you. And then there's going to be all this sort of animosity towards, so again, white supremacy has always had a, checking them, just the same way it checks black people, has always had that going on, in the background. You know what I mean? Don't get it twisted. Watch watch Hollywoodism. It's over there on The Real Black. Now don't be surprised after I make this video, all of a sudden YouTube decides that video, they no longer want that video up and starts throwing copyright infringement at The Real. Don't be surprised, because I'm telling, there's a lot of dirty laundry in that video of how shit really was, how their journey of trying to be accepted was, and all that shit. There's a lot in there. You know what I mean? But again, how much of that went on at the expense of black people? And so when black people call that out, that's not anti-Semitism. You know what I'm saying? It's calling out, again, it's like, what's up? Like, we in the same boat. No, they don't see themselves as in the same boat as us. Not at all. Not at all. And the black community needs to be honest about that. Now, when I ran it by Captain Solo said he doesn't think that majority of black people think that as deeply as what was laid out in that article from 1967 written by James Baldwin. He doesn't think that most black people think that deeply. And it's kind of like I look at the whole situation with the J people the same way I look at the situation with the Asian people. With the Asian people do set up shop in the black community and they, exploit, resources, vacuum resources out of the communities in which they don't live. They've been doing that. I mean, you can go all the way back to the LA riots and that whole thing with that black girl getting shot in the store by the Korean lady, after, they got in a fight over some change and the black girl attacked the Korean lady and the Korean lady pulled out a revolver and shot her dead. You know what I mean? So like it's always the issue across the board, and part of the great deal of the reason why black people always end up feeling the way that we feel is because we don't we're always consumers. We don't control. We don't, as Dr. Claudine said, the money doesn't circle around multiple times. You see, and this is a major problem. This is a major problem. And this current generation of black people, like we've never seen that. You know what I mean? If you were born, I don't know, after 1980, you know what I mean? You've never seen an intact, thriving black community with businesses on both sides of the street. You've never seen a black main street that looks like a Chinatown, and that big ass red arch that you always go through in every Chinatown all across America. Like where are the crossed Zulu spears? You know what I'm saying? Where's the main street with the crossed Zulu spears that I gotta go under when I drive into the black? It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And it's not that black people never built it. No, when black people had it, it was burnt down to the ground in conjunction with us having the same complex that many of these J people have, which is us trying to join white America, trying to join them, right? The only reason, like the part that kind of makes me feel some type of way, even about the thriving black communities, is I believe that those thriving black communities like Tulsa and Rosewood and Slocum, Texas and Ocoee, Florida, these sorts of communities, the reason why, or how do I say this? These communities were not just made in love, they were made out of necessity because we were excluded out of the dominant society. I wish they were made out of love purely. I wish black people had that sort of legacy where we organically created communities because we wanted to be around each other. But instead, what you see is black people, we want to be accepted by white folks, which is why, we always, instead of building up whatever we can build up and have our own, we want to run to their communities. And I always wonder what black America would look like if those communities, Slocum, Texas, Ocoee, Florida, Rosewood, Florida, Wilmington, North Carolina. What's other? Let me see if I can find it. I'm gonna Google again. I-4. Highway I-4, Florida, Tampa. This is another one of those communities that they Interstate 4 in Tampa. And this is real-time Interstate 4. Okay, Wikipedia. I know there's a black community. I'm going to get the name of the black community. Orlando, Tampa, I-4, left highway. There was a community that I-4 basically connects Tampa to Daytona Beach. And so it runs from east to west. And there was a community, it was a YouTube video that I found that was a predominantly black community, business district and everything. And because whenever they build them highways, white folks aren't going to run it through their own communities. They run it right through the heart of black communities. And this goes into the whole urban renewal and eminent domain, the 1955 Highway Commission Act, which, destroys It's not just about the physical buildings. It also destroys the cultural connections that those people have in those communities. It's like, now, people talk about, letting other people babysit their kids. Yeah, if you lived in a community where people have lived there for multiple generations, then you would see, oh, well, Miss Jackson will watch the kids. Yeah, I watch the kids. You gonna go do what you gotta do. They're just playing out in the streets. I'll watch them. And you wouldn't feel any type of way because Miss Jackson, because Miss Jackson went to school with your mother and all this other stuff. Yeah, like that, it has, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying it's way weaker than what it was in the past. And those sort of community connections, those that's what you use to make major moves. Like when you have that sort of trust, if you don't, black people have a hard time working with other black people because they don't trust other black people. That's just the facts. And I made a video, and this is like the third time I'm mentioning it because I don't want to forget. But I'm no longer comparing black people and our ability to create businesses or inability to create businesses in relationship to Indians and Arabs, because they have way too much consanguinity going on in their families. Meaning they marry, like if you go online and you Google it, it's like 50% of them are marrying their first cousins. I Googled the shit. And there's documentaries. They got to do public service announcements because the freaking birth defects are so high and the genetic disorders are so high in the UK that they have to give public service announcements to the Pakistani community and the Indian community and the Arab community because they keep marrying their first cousins. And so how does that relate to business? Because it's easy for them to go into business when your wife's father is your father's brother. If let's say you married your first cousin and then he gave you $50,000 to go and make a move or something like that and you fucked off on it. You know what I mean? All he's going to do is call his brother versus black people trying to go into business together and you marry, some other chick and she's got a cousin, Pookie, and all this other stuff. And you don't know them niggas like shit. You don't know them. Right? So it's going to take time for you to form those bonds and connections with people that you're totally unrelated. I'm not saying that all the Arab, Indian, and Pakistani community do this, but again, it's about 50% of them that are engaging in consanguinity, if I'm saying that right. I always hated that word because it was just spelled all funky. But anyway, they engage in that first cousin bullshit. I'm like, well, and why did they do it? What's the primary reason of them marrying first cousins? To keep wealth in the family. So it's already set up like that. It's already, so to compare that to African Americans who've been through the trauma and the legacy of slavery to a bunch of people who are basically operating businesses through incest. I'm like, I'm not making any comparisons to that. You know what I mean? It dawned on me because, again, I told you I rub shoulders with a lot of Daisy people, and I'm sitting there, I'm observing some shit. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like shit. I hear shit, and I'm like, wait a minute, he married his first cousin, and I'm like, that's why they in the bit. That's why everybody's all connected and they get in the business. That's why that shit. This isn't organic. This isn't some shit where they just, and because we're all Indians here, we will all just go into business together because, we know how to operate and work together, unlike those blacks. Like, nah, it's bullshit. Nah, that's you've already been together to each other's birthday parties and all that shit. You're related. Come on. Like, no, I'm not comparing black people to that shit. And that's something that I should have never done. So let me apologize to black people for criticizing them about and using Indians or Arabs or Pakistanis as the template, because telling you they got way too much of that, messing with their first cousin, in their family going on. I'm like, yeah, y'all money was already connected. You know what I mean? And they do this like every other generation, every generation. I'm like, damn. I'm like, so y'all like 3 generations of first cut. I'm like, damn. So she married her first cousin and you married your first cousin. I'm like, damn. Then we don't do. I'm like, nah. This cannot be. This is not a fair comparison. We cannot compare this. You know what I mean? So I just want to say that. But I'm about to end this video. I don't want to, I don't want to go over 60 minutes, even though I just did right now. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say. That is my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, or subscribe. These are just my thoughts on the whole Ye situation. He's got to get some better handlers. He's got to be, he's got to listen. You know what I mean? It's like, are you ready to listen? You keep fucking up. I mean, and they, because of controversy sells, he was getting away with a lot of stuff. But I'm like, again, I'm like, you fucking around talking about them J people. I'm like, I already knew what time it was. I knew that shit years ago when they played Schindler's List with no commercials on daytime television. You know what I'm saying? I already knew what time it was. But anyway, that's all I got to say. That's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.